Hey guys, Mr. Again. Today we're going to look at solving problems involving parallel lines cut by a transversal. So we've been looking at problems involving transversals, intersecting two lines or more. We've learned about different relationships and identifying these relationships and naming these pairs of angles. We've learned about what happens when a transversal intersects two parallel lines and how we can find the angle measurements, all based on knowing these relationships. And today we're going to continue that thought, and we're going to try some little bit more challenging problems, and we're going to have a little algebra in here, a little solving equations. All right, so here's our picture. We have two parallel lines, line K and L. Okay, we know that because it tells us right here. T is our transversal. That's intersecting the two parallel lines. And the two angles that we're looking at, 100 degrees and 2x degrees. All right, the first thing we have to do is identify what is their relationship. So I know when I have two angles that are adjacent next to each other in this situation, then I know that they are going to be supplementary. And since they're supplementary, it means if I added them up, they would add up to 180 degrees. So I'm going to take both these angles, 2x and 100, and since they're supplementary, I'm going to add them. I'm going to make it equal to 180. Okay? Because that's what happens here. They're supplementary. I add them up. They equal 180. All right, now it's just an equation. I'm going to solve this equation. I'm going to subtract 100 on both sides. That cancels. Bring down my 2x. Equals 180 minus 100 is 80. Divide by 2 on both sides. That cancels. X equals 40. And that's my solution. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, if I want to check it, I can take 40 and plug it back in for X. 2 times 40 is 80. 80 plus 100 is 180. So it works out. Okay, that's all we're doing. We're solving for X here. All right, same idea here. This time I have a different picture. We have 5x and 80 this time, so I want to identify this pair of angles and the relationship. So I notice that the 5x is on the left side of the transversal and the 80 is on the right side. So when angles are on different sides or opposite sides of the transversal, we call that alternate. And the angles are both inside these two lines. So inside would be interior. So we're going to call these alternate interior angles. Okay, that's their relationship. We've learned that when two parallel lines are intersected by a transversal, alternate interior angles are congruent. So this problem is going to be a little different than the first. I'm going to take my two angles, 5x and 80, but they're not supplementary, so I'm not going to add them up and set them equal to 180. They're congruent, so I'm going to make them equal to each other. Okay, that's what's going to happen with all these problems. They're either going to be supplementary, so I add them up, they equal 180, and I solve, or they're going to be congruent, and I make them equal to each other, and I solve. So we'll divide by 5 on both sides. 80 divided by 5 is 16. X equals 16. Now once again, I can plug that back in and check it, but that is the correct answer. All right, next one. All right, we have a 100-degree angle and a 2x minus 10-degree angle. Now both of these angles are on the same side of the transversal. And one's exterior, one's interior. So they're not same side exterior, they're not same side interior, because one's exterior, one's interior. But they both are in the same position on each line. Like 100 is right above line K and 2x minus 10 is right above line L. When that happens, we call these corresponding angles. Corresponding angles. And we learned when we have a transversal intersecting two parallel lines, corresponding angles are congruent. Okay, this is something you have to make sure you know. Otherwise, you won't be able to set these up. If you don't know that relationship, if you don't know that they're congruent, then you won't know how to set up the equation and even get your answer. All right, so since they're congruent, I'm going to say 2x minus 10. I'm going to say 100, and I'm going to make them equal to each other. And now I'll solve. We'll add 10 to both sides. 2x equals 110. We'll divide by 2 on both sides. X equals 55. And there we go. All right, so they're either going to be congruent or they're going to be supplementary. All right, last one. This time we have two angles. They're both on the right side of the transversal, so the same side, and they're both exterior. They're on the outside of these two parallel lines. This is the inside, this is the outside, so they're both on the outside. So we're going to call these same side exterior angles. And we learned that when we have a transversal intersecting two parallel lines, same side exterior angles are supplementary. All right, so we're going to take our two angles, 2x plus 5, 3x. We're going to add them together, and it's going to equal 180 because they're supplementary. Their sum is 180. All right, let's combine some like terms here. We have a 2x and a 3x. That's 5x. Still have a plus 5 there, equals 180. We'll subtract 5 on both sides. That will cancel. 5x equals 175. We'll divide by 5 on both sides. And x equals 335. And there you go. So for these a little bit more challenging problems involving parallel lines and transversals, we're making sure that we first identify what that relationship name is, then we remember whether they're congruent or whether they're supplementary, and then we use that information to set up the equation and solve. All right, good luck, guys.